Here from Simply Cuba Tours. Today I have the general information guide that you have requested. I won't be in this video because I set it up as a presentation, so hopefully you get to see some of the things that I'm talking about. And also today's information session is a general information session with regard to entry, requirements, visas, insurance, frequently asked questions, best time to travel, what to pack, and some general information on our tours. This is based on what you have given us that you would like to know more of in our newsletter and also through our Facebook page. You also requested some tour specific information with regard to activities and the like, so I will endeavor over the coming weeks to put together a deeper information session for each tour. Now let's get into this. What do you need to know about before you travel and what are the requirements? As at the 6th of February and today is the 1st of March, they haven't yet updated this. Basically, if you can travel out of your country, which is your first port of call to check if you're actually allowed to travel outside of your country, because there are a fair few of them on lockdown where you're not allowed to leave. So that's your first check. If you're allowed to travel and you're looking at coming into Cuba, you will be required to present a PCR test result upon entry into Cuba, not older than 72 hours from a certified laboratory from your country of origin. You will then also need to undergo another PCR test at the airport and also your temperature checked, and you will have to sign a health declaration. After this, you will be collecting your luggage and you will be transferred straight to state isolation centers, otherwise known as 4-5-star hotels that have been set up with medical facilities and medical teams to assist with your quarantine stay. You will then receive your first PCR test result for the test that you conducted at the airport around 2 days after your arrival, and after which on day 3 you will then have to do another PCR test and an antigen test, and then you will have to wait for the results of that also. So altogether you will be required to stay in quarantine for around 8 days at your own cost. So for anyone that was looking at doing an all-inclusive package in Cuba, unfortunately this is bad news because you'll be spending more time in quarantine than some of the packages would last for. So I recommend it's not the time to do it at the moment. For those of you that were looking at staying longer and you are looking to stay at casas or with family and friends, after the 8-day quarantine, you can potentially transfer into casa accommodation or to stay with friends. However, you have to be aware that some of these are closed, or some of them, if they're not in the same province, you might not be able to get to. So do research it and make sure that you can actually go to where you need to go after your quarantine time if you're still looking to travel to Cuba on this occasion. The other thing that you will need to have, as always, is a valid visa. So these ones, if you're traveling out of Canada, your airline would be assisting you. Generally it comes with your airline ticket. From other countries you potentially apply for through your Cuban embassy. If you are in the US, make sure that you apply for the right visa, because there are some restrictions as to how you can travel, under what circumstances, especially since that those rules have been tightened last year. Now, one of the subclasses that potentially could support you will require you to stay with casa particulars and use local service providers in support of the Cuban people. So just make sure that you apply for the correct visa and that you've got everything lined up to make sure that you actually meet those visa requirements. The limitations are not from Cuban end, they are actually set by the US government. So make sure that you choose the correct one and do not get into trouble. You will also need to have travel insurance in this day and age. You must include COVID-19 cover as well. What the Cuban authorities look at when you arrive is that you have enough coverage for any hospital coverage should it be required, and also to repatriate you to back home should it be required. If they deem that you do not have enough coverage, they will make you purchase particular coverage for yourself upon arrival to Cuba. You will also need to have a visa with a passport with 6 months validity. This is general travel requirements, but in this day and age, that's a good thing to have in case you get stuck somewhere along the way. There are also 19 countries that are exempt from visas. So if you are from one of the ones that you have seen on screen, obviously you will not need to apply for a visa. Now let's look at some frequently asked questions. Things like, are there ATMs? Yes, there are certainly ATMs in Cuba. However, they don't support all cards. They definitely do not support cards issued by American banks. So you need to have some sort of a backup plan, and also make sure that you advise your bank prior to traveling that you are in fact traveling, and where you are stopping if you need to stop anywhere along the way, and that you are in fact traveling to Cuba to ensure that you don't get caught out. Now, I also mentioned that you will need to have a backup plan because currently where they would have accepted cash, it might not be accepted. So for example, in hotels, restaurants at the moment, they are only accepting card payments to limit cash handling. So you definitely need to have cards. As for what currencies to bring, so from the 1st of January, Cuba has changed its currency system. So if you have CUC on hand, you can still spend it until the end of June, 30th of June, but it is now changed to the Cuban peso. But in saying that, the best currencies are your US dollars, which no longer has a surcharge to change over, Canadian dollars, euros, and British pound. And the locals actually also would appreciate that, because there are a lot of things that they only have access to currently through the dollar store, as they call it. So as a backup plan to cards, do have some sort of currency on hand as well. Question: can you drink the water in Cuba? No, do not drink the water in Cuba. You need to buy bottled water to ensure you don't catch any tummy bugs. But as a backup plan, I would also recommend to potentially bring some water purifying tablets in case there is a shortage of bottled water. How much money should I bring to Cuba? Well, make sure that you've got enough to cover your quarantine. If you're traveling at the moment, as I mentioned, there is 8 days of quarantine you'd have to pay for. And then after that, it really depends on the activities and the kind of stay that you're planning on. Obviously, if you're on an all-inclusive stay, then everything would have been paid for. If you're on tour, it will be dependent on what is already included in your tour. So look at that and plan accordingly. The toilets, I do have to bring up the toilets because there has been some nightmare stories going around with regard to these, as to no seats and dirty toilets and all that sort of thing. So there is definitely a payment required to go to public toilets around Cuba, so make sure you've got some coins on hand. As well as coming to Cuba, you will find that toiletries and sanitizers and things like that are hard to come by. So I do recommend that you pack yourself things like sanitizers, things like little hand soap packs, things like travel tissues and the like, so you don't get caught out when you're out and about. Will my phone work in Cuba is another big question. It really depends on where you're coming from. So For Canadians, it works. For Australians, it doesn't work. So your first point of call is your phone provider in your home country. Give them a hoy, tell them that you're traveling to Cuba, and ask them whether or not they have roaming available when you come to Cuba. If not, then you have to use internet access, which is also a little bit tricky, but it is possible. What you need to do for internet access in Cuba is buy a Wi-Fi card, which you can buy at hotels or at taxi outlets. They are fairly expensive, about $1 per hour, but it's well worth it if that's the only access. But through that you can use WhatsApp or you can use Messenger and the like to keep in touch with people around the world. If you are tipping in Cuba, that is let's go back. Tipping in Cuba is something that is much appreciated. It is not something that is compulsory, but people do rely on it. So if you are receiving outstanding service, then please tip your staff according to your satisfaction. If it's not satisfying, then don't tip. If it's satisfying, anywhere between 5 to 10% is what's generally acceptable. So please keep that in mind, that again, that's something that people use as a supplement to their income, which is very low in Cuba, so it is appreciated if you did. Okay, so what else do we have to cover today? Basically, what to pack to Cuba. Face mask, definitely. You will have to wear it on the plane. You will have to wear it when you're out and about in public places. So make sure that you have that handy. As mentioned previously, toiletries, you will need sanitizer, you will need medicines, are also hard to come by. So anything from cold and flu tablets to whatever you might need that you take on a daily basis, or vitamins or anything like that, do pack and bring with yourselves, because they will not be available in Cuba. Snacks, and I don't mean pack a banana when you're coming from overseas, but if you like your protein snacks or muesli bars and the likes, or even little packs of biscuits, do pack them for yourselves, because you will not be able to find them in Cuba. Power packs for your electronic devices are also very handy, especially that there might be power outages that you're faced with, so make sure that you pack them. With that, obviously, adapters and chargers you will also need to make sure that you can plug in. You cannot just go into a shop and buy them. Mozzie repellent, sunscreen, you are coming to a tropical island, so do pack them. If you're traveling with babies, children or teenagers, make sure that you've got anything from nappy to their entertainment packed with you, readily available. Cash and cards we touch base on. You will need to have various things on hand to make sure that you're covered. Baby wipes, even for adults, can be quite handy. Travel tissues, hygiene products, especially feminine hygiene products, do pack. Basically here the rule of thumb is anything that you would consider as a given back in your home country for your way of life, do pack it, because it's not a given in Cuba. Also would recommend comfortable clothes. You don't have to necessarily dress fully up or dress fully down, whatever you're comfortable with. Pack for yourself. All right, now let's talk about our small group packages. So we are a sustainable small group company. We provide small group tours with various themes around Cuba. Our main aim is to give you a cultural immersion and also to give back to the community. The way we give back to the community is by having local guides, by making sure that we stay at casas, and I'll talk about that a bit later, and making sure that we are using the services of local drivers when we travel. We also look at each tour and the theme of the tour, and we set up the group sizes according to the type of travel that it is, to ensure that we don't leave too big of a footprint on the environment as we travel. So in saying that, what are the things that we do? So we basically have varying tours with varying durations, inclusions, interests and budgets, and these tours were set up by asking about your interests, by asking about what you'd like to do, and also with the passions and love of our guides on the ground as to what they would like to show off to you whilst you are in Cuba. So we have photography tours where we take you around the various parts of the island. It includes, it's a 9-day tour, and it includes the cities like Havana, Trinidad. There's a part of the peninsula, so you get a varying experience whilst you're traveling around. We have a 2-week diving tour where you get to dive pretty much every day, and then in the afternoon you are free, and we give you some optional and some included activities. We also have a bird watching tour, which is an 8-day tour where you get to see the beautiful birds of Cuba. There are over 320 species on the island, and we intend to show most of them to you on your stay as much as possible. We also then have a couple of bit more generic tours. One is short, basically like a long weekend kind of tour, long weekend or short week, which is a generic tour that takes you around to the tobacco regions and some of the mountain regions in Cuba, and just give you a little insight into the daily life of Cuban people. And then we have our 13-day tour, our signature tour, which is Simply Cuba, that gives you an insight into the life. It gives you access to salsa dancing, to rum tasting and the like, and that's a bit of a balance between nature and fun. And like I said, I'll go into detail when I put together the tour specific information guides as to what's included. What I will touch base on, however, is the accommodation. So with us, we never stay in hotels. We do not do all-inclusive hotel tours. We specifically always stay in Casa Particulares to support the people, the communities visited, and to ensure that we can provide you with a cultural immersion while you're visiting. This way, you get to stay with locals, surrounded by the locals. You see the way of their lives. You get to learn more about how they spend their days, what they do, what they are about, and what life is like on the island. As mentioned, we also use private transport. So for example, our diving tour is kept at 4 people at maximum, so you get to travel in a classic car on your trip. Other tours like the birding tours is kept at 6 people to ensure that we do not disturb the environment. And our photography tour is kept at 8 people again, so we do not disturb the environment when we take you around. With that, we generally travel with small maxi cabs and the like to ensure that you are safe, you've got air conditioning, you've got comfort, and we can get you from A to B in a safe manner. So just generally on activities, when you're on a diving tour, there is a dive every single day in the morning, so then you can do a bit of a beach time or sightseeing in the afternoon. On the birding tour, you pretty much get to do bird watching during the day, so that's an all-inclusive pack, so you can truly enjoy the short hikes and bird life that's included. In Simply Cuba tour, you will have the likes of rum tasting, dancing, zip lining, that's a bit more of an adventure tour, and in Western Cuba tour you will have the likes of visiting a farm, even giving you a chance to roll your own cigar. As mentioned, our aim is to give you a real immersion into the life on the island and a real insight to the specific theme of the tour when you're with us, I guess. Now, if you'd like to go ahead and book yourself a well-deserved holiday, as we know everyone is looking forward to have a holiday already, you can do so. Our site is up and running. You can book with safety in mind. If we're not going ahead in May, we will basically consult with you and rebook you onto a time that's suitable for you without any booking fees. Our trips for 2022 are also open and up, ready for booking. So if you like to plan ahead, you are welcome to do so. As mentioned, we have flexible booking terms. We'd like to have you come along and like to share our passion and insider knowledge with you, so you can have a true, authentic experience when you're in Cuba. If you'd like more information or you don't want to book through the site, you can contact us via WhatsApp or via phone or through the email address on page, or as mentioned, visit our site and check out further details for each of the tours, see which one is interesting you. If you have any further questions, please feel free to use any of these channels to get in touch, or just pop your questions below this presentation and we'll come back to you. If you'd like to follow us, we do put up short videos on YouTube on the Simply Cuba Tours channel, or you can come along, follow us here on Facebook. We actually provide most up-to-date information, travel information on Facebook as they come out. Or if you'd like to see our beautiful pictures and get insider information or more information about the places that you visit to, you can also visit us on Instagram. I hope that this was informative for you. Please let us know if you have any other questions, or if you'd like to know any further information with regard to general travel requirements at the moment. We'd be more than happy to answer you. Take care and speak soon.